The rain had been falling all evening, soaking the cracked earth outside the small, weather-beaten house on the edge of town. Inside, a warm glow flickered from a single lamp, casting long shadows on the faded wallpaper. Jack, a man in his mid-30s with strong arms and weary eyes, sat at the worn wooden table. In front of him, his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, drew shapes on a piece of scrap paper with the broken end of a crayon. Life had not been easy since Lily's mother passed away. Jack worked long hours at the dry cleaners, barely making enough to pay for food and rent. Yet, despite the exhaustion, his world revolved around Lily. Every smile she gave him, every laugh, every time she reached for his hand, it gave him the strength to keep going. But that night, fate decided to twist his life in ways he never expected. The sound of hurried footsteps splashing through puddles echoed from the dirt road outside. Jack frowned, glancing toward the door. Few people ever came this far, especially during a storm. A moment later, someone knocked, desperate, sharp, almost trembling. Jack stood, his instincts on edge. He opened the door, and there she was. A young woman, no more than 22, drenched from head to toe, her long dark hair plastered against her face. She clutched a small leather bag close to her chest as if it carried her life inside. Her eyes, wide, frightened, but burning with determination, met Jack's, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. I need help," she stammered, her voice shaking with cold. Jack hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who opened his home to strangers. But something about her, maybe the vulnerability in her eyes, maybe the way Lily peeked around his leg, curious and unafraid, pushed him to step aside. "Come in," he said, his voice firm but gentle. She entered, dripping water onto the old wooden floor, her breaths heavy as if she had been running for miles. Lily offered her the crayon stub she had been holding, a gesture so innocent that the young woman almost broke into tears. Jack fetched a towel and handed it to her. "You can dry off." "What's your name?" She hesitated, clutching the towel tightly. "Emma," she whispered. Jack nodded but didn't press further. He could sense she was hiding something, but for now, it didn't matter. He simply guided her toward the fire, letting her warm her trembling hands against the flickering flames. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, 3 souls, each carrying their own scars, shared a silence filled with questions yet unspoken. Jack didn't know it yet, but opening that door would change everything. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the world washed clean and glistening under the weak sunrise. Emma sat on the edge of the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent and home. Lily climbed onto her lap, a small bundle of curls and warmth, and smiled up at her. Jack bustled in the kitchen, already preparing a simple breakfast. The aroma of burnt toast and eggs filled the small living room. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Breakfast is almost ready." Emma chuckled softly. "Looks perfect," she said, though the eggs were slightly overcooked. Lily giggled. "Daddy burns toast all the time," she exclaimed. Jack smiled faintly, giving her a playful nudge with his elbow. "See? You're in good company." It was a simple moment, yet for Emma it felt monumental. For the first time in days, maybe even weeks, she felt safe. No cameras, no security guards, no invisible chains pressing against her every move. Here, she could breathe, even if only for a little while. Over breakfast, conversation flowed cautiously. Jack asked about her journey, though he didn't pry too deeply. Emma answered in fragments, careful to conceal more than she revealed. Lily, meanwhile, offered the occasional question or commentary, and her innocent curiosity helped Emma's walls crack just a bit. By midday, Jack suggested Emma help him at the laundromat down the block. "It's just temporary," he said. "A friend of mine runs it. They could use an extra hand if you're staying in the city a while." Emma hesitated. She had lost everything: her phone, her wallet, her place to stay, but the thought of work, of earning something with her own hands, sparked a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll try." The laundromat was warm but chaotic, filled with the hum of machines and the smell of detergent and fabric softener. Customers scowled and barked orders, indifferent to the young woman clearly learning on the job. Shirts were folded incorrectly, towels misaligned, and yet Emma persisted. Jack remained patient, guiding her silently, demonstrating the motions with practiced ease. "It's messy at first," he said quietly, "but someone needs to eat it anyway." Emma laughed, a sound she hadn't realized she missed. Lily's voice echoed in her memory, her innocent laughter reminding Emma that kindness existed in the world, not just in the pages of wealthy families' lives or behind the security barriers she had known. By evening, the two returned home. Emma was exhausted, her hands raw and red from soap and friction, but something inside her felt lighter. Jack noticed but didn't comment, simply offering a quiet, knowing smile. The unspoken bond between them was growing, built not on words, but on shared effort and small acts of trust. That night, as Emma lay on the couch under an extra blanket, she realized something profound. Home wasn't a mansion or a bank account. Home was warmth, safety, and trust. And for the first time, she had found it in the most unexpected of places, alongside a man who worked tirelessly for his daughter and a little girl who welcomed her without judgment. Outside, the city lights twinkled through the rain-soaked streets, but inside, Emma finally felt anchored. The next morning, the city woke with its usual symphony of honking horns, distant sirens, and the faint smell of fresh bread drifting from a nearby bakery. Emma stood at the laundromat, apron tied tightly around her waist, and felt the soreness in her shoulders from the day before. The work was grueling, but she had begun to understand its rhythm, the spin of the machines, the hum of the dryers, the weight of freshly folded linens. Jack arrived mid-morning, a welcome sight, balancing a stack of folded towels in his arms. "You're improving," he said with a small grin. "Don't underestimate the small victories." Emma managed a tired smile. "I think my back is going to remind me of this for the next week," she admitted. "Better than a life where someone else carries it all for you," Jack replied quietly. But the calm was short-lived. By afternoon, the laundromat received a large delivery order from a local hotel, 100 sheets, uniforms, and towels needing washing, drying, and folding by morning. Emma's stomach sank at the sight, but Jack's steady presence reassured her. "We'll tackle it together," he said. The night stretched on, fluorescent lights humming above as Emma struggled to keep pace with the folding and sorting. Shirts slipped from her hands, towels refused to stay aligned, and she refolded the same pieces multiple times. Jack moved beside her silently, correcting her motions, offering tips without condescension. The teamwork built a quiet understanding between them. By 2 a.m., the final batch was loaded into Jack's old pickup truck. Emma's fingers tingled from cold and exhaustion. Jack handed her a small laundry bag to deliver to a nearby house. She stepped out into the dark street, the only light coming from the flickering porch lamps. Suddenly, a large dog bolted from behind a gate, barking furiously. Emma stumbled backward, twisting her ankle, her palms scraping against the concrete. Panic surged, but Jack was already sprinting toward her, arms outstretched. "Get back!" he shouted, placing himself between her and the dog. The dog hesitated, retreating as Jack stood firm. He scooped Emma into his arms, her ankle throbbing, and carried her back to the truck. "I told you to stay put," he scolded, his voice a mix of fear and anger. Emma looked up at him, her eyes welling with tears. "No one's ever yelled at me because they were scared for me," she whispered. Jack's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Well, you're in the wrong house now," he replied, a hint of a smile breaking through his tension. The adrenaline faded, leaving Emma with a strange mix of relief and awe. She realized that Jack's care wasn't conditional. It wasn't about her status, her wealth, or her secrets. It was simply who he was, a man whose heart guided his actions, whose courage shielded others without expectation of reward. As they drove back to the house, Emma clutched the small laundry bag, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the reassurance of safety. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the quiet courage that had protected her tonight. That night, as Emma lay in the couch, her ankle throbbing but her heart full. She understood something vital. Challenges were inevitable, but the people who chose to stand with you made all the difference. And for the first time, she wasn't facing life alone. The next morning, the city seemed quieter, almost cautious, as if holding its breath. Emma woke to the sound of Lily's soft laughter echoing from the living room. Jack was already busy making breakfast, the smell of sizzling eggs and burnt toast filling the small kitchen. Emma stretched, wincing slightly at her sore ankle, and took a deep breath. It was time. She reached into her pocket and felt the delicate gold necklace she had hidden, an object she thought forgotten. The sapphire pendant caught the early sunlight streaming through the window. She stared at it for a long moment, then tucked it back, knowing Jack deserved the truth. "Jack," she began cautiously, her voice soft. "There's something I need to tell you." He paused, whisk in hand, and looked up, his eyes calm but alert. "Whatever it is, Emma, it won't change how I see you." She took a deep breath, the weight of her secret pressing down. "I'm not just some student in the city. I'm the daughter of Winston Harrington." Jack blinked, setting the whisk aside. Silence filled the kitchen. He leaned against the counter, studying her carefully, measuring her words against the calm certainty in her tone. "You mean, the Harrington?" he asked slowly, as if testing the syllables for danger. "Yes," she whispered, her fingers clenching the edge of the table. "I left everything behind, my life, my wealth, the expectations. I came here to find something real, something I couldn't buy." Jack's expression softened. He walked around the counter and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Emma, none of that changes what I know about you. You're brave, honest, and strong. Those are the things money can't give." Her chest tightened with relief and fear. "But my father! He'll come looking for me. He'll—" Before she could finish, the front door slammed open. A man in a leather jacket stepped inside, phone in hand, his eyes locked on Emma. "There she is," he muttered, raising the camera. "Your father's offering 6 figures to know where you're hiding." Emma's heart raced, panic surging. Jack's instincts kicked in immediately. He stepped in front of her, his posture solid and protective. "Back off!" he shouted, his voice booming with authority and anger. The man hesitated, then snapped another photo. Emma's mind whirled, adrenaline sharp in her veins. Jack grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the back exit. "Go!" he commanded. They sprinted down the narrow alley, her breath ragged, her ankle protesting every step. Behind them, the man shouted, but Jack didn't stop. They reached his truck, and he gently lifted her inside. "You're safe now," he said, though his shirt sleeve was torn and his arm bruised from the scuffle. Emma looked at him, eyes wide. You didn't care who I was?" Jack shook his head. "I never did. I cared about the person in front of me. That's all that matters." For the first time, Emma understood fully, protection, love, and trust had nothing to do with wealth or status. It had everything to do with character, and Jack had more of it than anyone she had ever known. As they drove through the darkened streets, Emma held her breath, the city lights blurring past. Somewhere in the distance, her old life waited, but she knew where she truly belonged. The rain had just stopped, leaving the city streets glistening under the morning sun. Emma's heart pounded as she stepped into her father's penthouse. The polished floors reflected her every step, and the skyline shimmered behind Winston Harrington, who sat at the head of a long glass table. He didn't look up. "I figured you'd be back once the dust settled," he said coolly. "I didn't come back to hide," Emma replied, keeping her voice steady. "I came back to talk." Finally, Winston folded the paper he had been reading, giving her a long, measured glance. "You've been running, playing house with a janitor. This isn't your world. You're throwing away everything for what?" Emma took a deep breath. "He isn't a janitor. He's a father. A man who shows up every day for his daughter. A man who taught me more about love and strength in 3 weeks than you have in 30 years. Winston's eyes narrowed, the tension in his posture taut. "You're going to choose him over this, over me?" "I'm choosing my life," Emma said softly. My voice, and yes, the man who lives by his hands and his heart. He let the words settle between them, his face unreadable. You love him, he finally said, almost as a statement to himself. I do, she said, meeting his gaze. He gives me everything that matters. Not wealth, not status, but dignity, honesty, and a home that feels alive. For a long moment, Winston stared out the window, silent. He poured himself a drink, the amber liquid swirling in the glass. I never meant to be the villain, he muttered. Emma tilted her head. I know. You just forgot how to be a person. He looked down into the glass, tension softening in his shoulders. He has something I don't, he said quietly. Emma's eyes softened. A daughter who loves him for who he is. He didn't answer. She took a deep breath and stepped toward the door. I'm going back. To the life I chose. And this time, I'm not running. I'm walking toward it. Her father did not stop her. He said nothing, letting her leave the penthouse and step back into the rain-soaked streets below. She didn't look back. The knock came just after sunrise. Jack was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes into dinosaur shapes for Lily. He opened the door and froze. Emma stood there, holding a small brown paper bag. Blueberry muffins. The real kind. No preservatives, she said softly. Jack, she added, her voice steady. I'm not here for the night. I'm here to stay, if you'll have me. Jack searched her face for doubt, found none, and smiled. We're not rich, he said, voice rough. I've had everything, money, travel, luxury, but I never had a kitchen where someone made dinosaur pancakes. I never had a home that felt like it loved me back. Jack's eyes softened. This house is small, he said. It's enough. It's full of heart, Emma replied. A small voice interrupted them. Lily stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Emma? Emma knelt down. Hey, sunshine. I brought muffins. Lily ran into her arms, wrapping tight around her neck. Are you staying forever? She asked. Jack nodded. Forever sounds good. 2 months later, the park was alive with families, dogs, laughter, and the smell of fresh food. Jack's old truck had been converted into a weekend food stand, Emma's idea. Jack's jams lined the counter, Emma worked the griddle, and Lily handed out napkins with a proud grin. They didn't make a fortune, but they made enough. And more importantly, they made a life together, built not on wealth, but on love, trust, and the courage to choose what truly matters. Sometimes the richest lives are built not with money, but with hearts full of dignity, kindness, and courage. And for Emma, Jack, and Lily, home had finally found them.